Now it's time to bring in our guest and our good friend, Robert Kiyosaki, founder of Rich Global LLC and the Rich Dad Company. He's also best-selling personal finance author and co-author of the book, Who Stole My Pension? How You Can Stop the Looting. Robert, thanks so much for being back on the show with us here today.
David, I appreciate it. Like we're talking about, this tree is gone now because of that fire in California. It's a very sad time, you know?
Yeah.
My friend Vineyard.
It is. It's a time, you know, every year it seems like you folks have to deal with that, but this year has been particularly bad. And I guess it's particularly bad for lots of things. You know, I just bought a Life is Good t-shirt just last week with a big golf ball on the front of it. And it says 2020, one big mulligan, right? I think a lot of people feel that way. In fact, recently you said in a tweet, you said, hold cash, be patient, the worst is yet to come. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, there's no correlation now between the price and the fundamentals. And it's not the fundamentals of the market, it's the fundamentals of the economy. And you said it, you know, it's this book here, Who Stole My Pension? You know, when they started to flatten the yield curve back in 2005, it meant pensions got wiped out because they couldn't maintain that 7% annual growth. So today, the pension plans are toast. So the biggest crash is yet to come, and it's pensions for police, firefighters, and school teachers. And I don't see any way out of it. You know, as you know, in the market today, how do you generate income? That's the biggest question of all.
So you were talking about, and of course, you know, our viewers know they watch us every Sunday morning because they want to learn how to generate income. That's what we're always talking about. So when you were talking about the worst is yet to come, I get the fact that a lot of the pensions are underfunded, and that's going to create potentially a significant problem for a lot of Americans. But moreover, I thought specifically you were talking about the stock market at this particular point for people who are investing in 401ks. Was that what you were discussing with that tweet, or implying with that tweet?
No, I'm just thinking about, you know, macro. I mean, the whole world is in serious trouble because back in 71, when Nixon started printing money, you know, it blew this world into this massive bubble. In 2008, they continued the bubble blowing. And now this bubble is so big, then you have COVID added to it. And you go, how much more bubble can you blow? That's the whole thing. And I don't think we've seen the worst yet. So that's my concern. You know, and Buffett, he started selling bank shares, but you know, the banks stopped paying dividends. So there's something going on, plus airlines. You know, I look at all that and say, can you give me a solution to the fundamentals of the economy? And I don't see it. That's why I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, the stock market is obviously really counting on a good economic recovery. If you look at just today, there's definitely a difference between the two. And the stock market's forward-looking 6, maybe 12 months. So of course, the stock market investors today are really hoping that 6 or 12 months, things are going to turn around. And they may or they may not. But as far as the long-term bubble, you know, the debt bubble that you referred to, that's always the tough call, is how long is it going to last? The bubble can go for 5 or 10 more years. Yeah. Eventually, something has to give. But the question is, what do you do between now and then when interest rates are this low? And that's why we talk about investing by contract here on the show today. I know you're a fan, you're a real estate guy, and part of the reason you love real estate is because, you know, you love having leases with credit-worthy tenants and knowing what you're gonna be able to get. We have 30 seconds left in the segment, but isn't that the basic gist of part of why you love real estate so much?
Well, real estate's technically a bond, and real estate depends upon jobs. You know, so there's a counterparty risk, as they talk about. So if they don't have jobs, they don't pay the rent, and the forbearance right now is so high, people are not paying. And then the CDC stepped in, those commie little bastards. They told everybody, you don't have to pay your rent. Well, what's the CDC stepping into my business? So that's,
I know I've talked to so many people who own property who are just devastated by that. It's not good. We need to take a quick commercial break. Robert, stay with us, please. And you stay with us too. We have much more coming up right here on The Income Generation. We'll be right back. right now it's time to bring back our good friend Robert Kiyosaki, author and businessman. Robert, thanks for sticking around. We were talking right before the break about rental property. I didn't give you much time, and you're right. Part of the things about rental property, and the same is true for people who invest, let's say, in real estate investment trusts. The idea is, you have a lease, and that lease is supposed to assure you a certain amount of income, so it works like a bond. And over time, hopefully, you can renew the lease and put inflation hedge. A lot of commercial properties have that cost of living thing built in. But all that goes out the window if the government's telling tenants that they don't have to pay, and they're telling owners that they can't evict. Isn't that true?
That's correct. And those REITs, a lot of it's in retail. I mean, in shopping centers and office buildings. And I was just really sad. I was at one of the biggest shopping malls in Phoenix, and it was a ghost town. Not that there's no people there. There's no tenants there. They've moved out. And that's the whole thing is there's a CMBS, is collateralized mortgage-backed securities. That's collapsing. So that's why I was pretty pessimistic going, I don't like cash, but cash is going to be king probably for the next let's say a year or so. Because the good news is there's going to be bargains floating to the surface, but you don't want to be the skipper of the Titanic going down with the ship. And you better have some cash, which is like the life preserver, so you can start investing again. So it's not all bad news, but just being aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And, we always talk about bonds and bond-like instruments. And, if you can get even 4% these days in interest and dividends, with a subdued inflation rate, 4% isn't that bad. But you've got to be really careful, just like the federal government, as you indicated, had saddled us with a lot of extra debt as a country, a bubble that at some point, probably will burst, whether it's in our lifetimes or not, we don't know. But so you got to be careful even with corporations to make sure that you're not buying bonds or preferreds in zombie companies, essentially, correct?
Correct. It's always the fundamentals at this point. And that's why I said there's a separation between the price and the fundamentals, not only of stocks or real estate, but generally the US government as a whole. They've separated. It makes no sense anymore. And this COVID-19 thing has accelerated and made it 10 times worse. And is there a solution? I don't see one. I don't think, last night Trump was claiming he had a vaccine. Well, that's good, but vaccines don't wash away the debt.
Right. Very true. And vaccines are typically only about 40 or 50% effective anyway. So is that really going to give people the confidence to just go back to the old ways? I think perhaps not. But, you're the guy who wrote the book, Cash Flow Quadrant, right? So you're the cash flow guy. So how do you tell people today to get cash flow if they're investors, especially whether retired or not? Where do you tell them to go?
This is going to sound strange, but you have to watch out for socialism today. And I don't mean in a bad way. This Green New Deal, the biggest investments are not going to be in technology or gold and silver. The biggest technology is going to be in energy. And so this Green New Deal, AOC and all those communists out there, like Sanders, they're going to force people to become more energy efficient. And so even, I think it's BP or one of those companies just said, we're no longer an oil company, we're an energy company. So that's going to force them into alternative energy, such as solar, wind, and all that, which is a good thing. But anything the government touches, turns to crap eventually. But that's the future. So I'm very bullish on energy, but that's a longer term play. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and right now, getting involved in a lot of those stocks that really focus on renewable energy, they're not paying a big yield right now because they're reinvesting everything internally.
Right.
Some of the traditional oil companies can pay a decent dividend, but then you have to worry about, is that dividend going to get cut if the demand for oil stays down, if the prices stay down? So again, it's a time where investing for income is a challenge. And again, that's why today we're talking about investing by contract, having a contract like that lease with creditworthy tenants. So in the final minute we have left here today, as you know, our viewers our listeners are pretty much all over the age of 50 or 55. They're part of the income generation. What's your best advice for them?
Be careful. I don't. I've been a gold and silver. I was buying silver at 1964 when I was 16. I started buying gold at 72 when I was 20 something, when it was illegal for Americans to own gold. So I never saved dollars. I just saved gold and silver. And now I'm buying Bitcoin. But that's a hedge. I'm talking about, it's not income, it's a hedge. And so, but if it crashes, I'm okay, because gold and silver and Bitcoin somehow hold their value.
So best advice is, at bare minimum, have a hedge against stock prices coming down, be diversified that way, and then do the best to generate the income that you can.
It's a hedge against the dollar. It's a hedge against the dollar.
Yeah,
that's gold, Bitcoin.
That's true too. So listen, we need to leave it there for now. Thanks so much for being back with us on the show. We really appreciate it. Hope to talk with you soon. And you stay with us too. We have more coming up in just a moment right here on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.
Thank you, David.